We can start recording now, I think. Okay. I hereby call this February regular meeting of the Cambria Community Services District Board of Directors to order. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All of our members are present, all directors are present, so we have a quorum. And I have no formal president's report. However, I have a question to ask our district counsel, Mr. Carmel. He does have a report out of closed session, and our agenda that's at least published that we have here doesn't have a slot for it. So I wonder where we put that.
You can just interlineate, but we can still have the announcement. I'll make it now.
Fine.
Yesterday, the board had a special meeting, held a closed session for a conference with its real property negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54-956.8. The property is 2950 Santa Rosa Creek Road, Cambria. Assessor's parcel number 013-081-075. The agency negotiators are General Manager Matthew McElhaney and District Counsel Tim Carmel. The negotiating party is Coast Unified School District. Under negotiation is a lease or easement and fee, purchase price, and terms of payment. No action was taken. The board also had a conference with legal counsel pursuant to Government Code Section 54-956.9 D1 involving one case, Vincent versus the Cambria Community Services District et al., and no action was taken. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In agenda review, this is the time when members of the board can request to have an item moved or removed, not added. Does anybody want to make any comment on agenda review? Okay, thank you. Board member communications. It's time when board members may want to report on their activities, ask questions for clarification, briefly make an announcement. Any announcements? Mr. Carmel?
Yeah, yes, President Gray.
Yeah, does the report from closed session call for public comment?
I guess technically it does.
Technically it does, okay. So let's go back and is there any public comment on the report from closed session? Online?
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Director Dean. That was a good catch. We'll go get a board member communications. I think Director Farmer had his hand up.
Thank you, President Gray. So I just want to let folks know, I think many of you, obviously that live locally and perhaps even not, know about the proposed or planned offshore wind farm that's going to be happening off the coast here, the central coast of California, mainly visible from Morro Bay all the way up here to Cambria. It's going to be a multi-billion-dollar operation. It's going to do a tremendous amount of economic as well as environmental harm to this entire area. Now, people obviously have different opinions on it. That just happens to be mine, and a lot of other people I know feel the same way. So I just want to let you know, if you want to know more about the issue, if you want to protest the possibility of this happening, there's going to be a rally on Saturday, March the 9th at noon at the Veterans Hall in Morro Bay. It's on, I think it's 290 Surf Street. So there's going to be, like I say, a huge gathering there, a lot of information being provided, and also there's going to be food and music as well. This is, like I say, a real opportunity to learn more about the possibility of what this project could do to the environment as well as economically in our area. So thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Director Farmer. Any other announcements or board member communications? So we'll move along to public safety. The public safety reports. First, Commander McDonald here from the Sheriff's Office.
Hello, Mr. President, members of the board, members of staff, and members of the public. For January, we had 3 assault and battery reports. One was a battery report, and 2 of them were domestic violence related. We had 17 disturbance calls, which included 14 general disturbances and 3 neighbor disputes. There were 2 thefts reported. One was a theft of out of a residential front yard of a ornamental chimney kind of stove, and one was actually an unfounded theft from a business. There were 3 vandalisms reported. One was vandalism to a residence, one was vandalism to a vehicle, and one was vandalism to a business. There were no mail thefts reported and no phone scams reported. We had 5 suspicious circumstances. That was reported as 4 suspicious circumstances and 1 suspicious subject. In the month of January, there were 31 enforcement stops, which included 30 vehicle stops and 1 pedestrian stop. And then there were 12 preventative patrol activities, which included 1 extra patrol, 3 patrol checks, and 8 on-site activities. And then I will go back to burglary. We only had 1 burglary reported. However, it was a significant burglary of a liquor store in downtown. It was a sophisticated crime by a couple of suspects who had obviously done some research and homework on what they were after. They entered the business in the early morning hours, went directly to the items that they had obviously pre-selected to steal, and were in and out in a very short period of time. Fortunately, an alert citizen witnessed that activity and was able to call into Sheriff's Dispatch and provide us with a vehicle description. So as those 2 burglary suspects left the area on Highway 46, one of our responding units encountered their vehicle, turned around on it, and I wouldn't call it a pursuit. The suspects did elude our patrol car, but in the process of eluding, and while our patrol deputies were trying to overtake them, they became involved in a single vehicle accident where the 2 suspects were seriously, but not life-threatening, injured. And so they were apprehended. They are both still, I believe, recuperating from their serious injuries in hospitals, and they will be then brought before the criminal justice system to answer for their crime. The stolen items, which had a very high value, were recovered, and they were able to be returned to the storekeeper. And with that, I will turn it over to you for any questions or concerns.
First, any questions from directors? Dr. Farmer.
I just want to comment on the fact that a very alert member of the community happened to see this, take place. I mean, how fortunate was that, right?
Yes, especially in Cambria in the wee hours of the morning when
right, exactly.
most all of us are asleep.
Right.
But yes, that was invaluable in bringing a successful conclusion to getting this high value property back to its rightful owner.
Any other questions? No. Any public comment on this item?
No.
No, okay, thank you. I have no further questions. I was also impressed with somebody being out in the 2 in the morning, whatever, on Main Street.
I believe it was someone who resided near the business.
Okay,
So,
that's-
I don't know if they heard something or just happened to be up, but they did definitely recognize the behavior.
With a village that never sleeps.
Yes.
Well,
And we
Thank
live,
you.
And we live among wonderful neighbors.
yes, we do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And next up is the fire CCSD Fire Chief's report. Chief Berkey.
Good afternoon, President Gray, board, staff, members of the community. This is the report, my fire chief's report for the January period of 2024. So during that time, from January 1st to January 31st, we've had 2 structure fires. One of those was caused by an electrical issue, maintenance issue, and the other one was an outdoor heating device. Both were relatively small, both were handled relatively easily. But we had a total of 41 rescue and EMS calls, 3 hazardous conditions, 15 service calls, 12 PSA, 13 good intent calls, for a total of 78 for the entire month. So that concludes that portion of the report. I did have I wanted to talk a little bit about the storm. We just had this over the last weekend or so. And so on February 1st through 7th, we were expecting 2 severe storms to hit our county and the Cambria community. In preparation for those events, I met with our county officials, including the San Luis Obispo County Chiefs, county and state OES for the National Weather Service weather briefings on 4 different occasions to try and determine the preparation that we would potentially need for this event. It was determined that additional staffing would be required throughout the weekend, which was accomplished by the outstanding dedication of our department personnel. The county also assigned a task force of additional fire apparatus to use throughout our county as well. And that was totaling 6 Type 3 fire engines that were available throughout the county. We had 2 additional firefighters on each day for a total of 6 during the storm's peak, which was Sunday, February 4th through Monday, February 5th. The crews ran a total of 15 storm-related emergencies. This did not include the normal EMS calls, which together through those 2 days was a total of 22. And all those numbers don't sound that significant. The nature of those calls which included power lines, trees in the power lines, trees across the road, those type of things, takes a significant amount of time and a significant amount of work on those crews to clear those roadways. And so it was a significant number. I wanted to take this opportunity as well to thank some of the people that were vital to the success of our operations throughout the weekend, including first and foremost Commander McDonald, who I spoke with prior to the event a couple of times, and his agency was pivotal in notifying our unhoused community prior to the storm, amongst the other duties that they were performing throughout the entire event. And they were ready to respond, and we saw them out there consistently. So I was very, very thankful for them to be here. I also wanted to recognize our general manager, who was here right beside us through the entire storm. The peak of the storm, he did not leave Cambria for 48 hours. So in my entire 15 years of being here in Cambria, I have never, to my recollection, had a general manager do that. And so that was very, very significant, as well as having his emergency background and experience that he brings to our agency was very, very helpful in supporting our crews here. So I wanted to thank him for that. Myself and General Manager McElhaney were patrolling the area and assisting our crews with responses. It felt like just assisting the crews with the road closures, even pulled some trees out of the road for them. So we were all in over the weekend. So I also wanted to recognize the other departments within the CCSD, including the board and the CCSD staff, for their commitment during the storm, as I know some of them were here for that entire 48 hours as well. F&R, Water Department, Wastewater, Parks and Open Space, they were all working behind the scenes to keep our community safe during these events, and I just don't feel like they usually get the recognition they deserve. So they were working very, very hard. So I really appreciate everything that they did. Lastly, it wouldn't be a complete speech of mine if I didn't thank our crews for their outstanding performance during the events as well. They showed their dedication and proved their commitment to our community again, and as they've done on so many occasions. So a huge thank you to the firefighters that we employ. So they did a great job. In closing, I just wanted to remind people that we have another much less significant storm coming through the weekend, but I wanted to remind them that with that comes some potential for emergencies, the flooding and the road closures again. So just if we can get a chance to review our Instagram, Facebook, the CCSD website for continued updates as the storm passes, we can look at and see what we can do to prepare for that. Also, readyslow.org is another great website, and you can find links to that on the CCSD website, as well as many others. That'll be very helpful. So, and then lastly, you can always call the fire department and or me directly, and I can assist you in any of those emergency preparations. That's all I have. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Well,
Open to
thank you,
questions.
thank you, Chief Berkey. Any questions from the board? Any public comment on Chief Berkey's report?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. That was a very thorough recognition of all the people who were involved in keeping us safe over during the storm. And it's also very good to point out that we get cooperation from other agencies, sheriff, very closely in these situations. And it sounds like everybody did their job very well, and I'm glad to hear that. So thank you again.
Yeah, it's never a one department operation,
Right.
And very, very thankful, like I said, to all the agencies involved in all aspects of the CCSD. So we recognize it. We're out there. Like I said, General Manager McElhaney and I were out there, and we saw it firsthand. So really, really appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again. At this point, we have the space for public comment, and this is for comment on issues or topics that are within the board's jurisdiction but are not on today's agenda. And everyone has 3 minutes to either have their comment read or to read it or to state it themselves here. First of all, is there anybody in the audience who wants to comment during this section of the meeting? And now online, Ms. Dodson, anybody?
No one via Zoom, but I do have some written comments.
Okay, so just please continue with the written comments. Thank you.
Okay, the first comment is from Ron Keck. Dear CCSD Board and Community of Cambria, we just spent 3 hours watching the February 8th board meeting. We listened to lot owners just like us ask for fairness and how desperately we want to be a part of the community of Cambria and how we paid taxes and fees for decades only to watch the moratorium live on. We also heard some familiar local voices in the public comments tell the board how lot owners have no right to their water and their precious resources only for existing residents. The next item agenda was weed abatement. We then listened to a community member who was upset at town lot owners who were carelessly jeopardizing the lives of locals by not properly maintaining their lots because we have no stake in the community. So in other words, they want us to pay our taxes, clear our lots, pave their roads, but not dare think we should have the chance to build. I lived in Cambria for 17 years. I also had a lot there. Next to my lot was a huge parcel overgrown with vegetation, so dense you couldn't tell the topography of the lot. I reported that lot to CCSD as I was concerned of the risk this lot, rich in fuel for a fire, contained. The answer I was given was this lot was contiguous with a lot that had a home on it, so by code, this vacant parcel was exempt from fuel reduction ordinances. This was a terrible policy. Has it been corrected? It's similar to how I could not build on my vacant lot, but if the homeowner next to my lot were to purchase my lot on the cheap, they can merge it with their parcel and then expand on my lot. I have seen this happen. Then they build a separate structure complete with water hookups, bathroom and kitchen. Has this law changed? Too many laws to protect current residents and keep others out. This is not just. I hope Cambria can become a more equitable, inclusive, and diverse place. Sincerely, Ron and Donna Keck.
Just before you go on, I neglected to put the timer on, but the written comments also are limited to 3 minutes. I believe that one wasn't over 3 minutes, but I will put the timer on for this next one.
Okay.
Thank you.
And this last written comment is from Linda Prentice. Thank you for once again for considering building permits on owned vacant land with under number 100 water meter numbers. Thank you.
Thank you. And that, I think, concludes public comment. Let me hang on a second. We'll move on to the manager reports. General managers first, Mr. McElhenney.
Thank you, President Gray. I wanted to follow up Chief Berkey's compliments to staff, water and wastewater. I was able to spend 2 days with them and see what they have to do under these conditions. And, you know, I brought them lunch and foods because they're constantly on the move. You know, I went by the fire department. They sat down for 5 minutes, put one slice of pizza in their mouth, and the next thing you know, the tones are going off and they're gone again. So they're on the move quite a bit. So they did a phenomenal job during the storm. Difficult environmental hazards. I mean, there was power lines down all over the community. There were trees into houses, trees on top of cars, and they operated and acted swiftly. The same with our water and wastewater folks. They were here for the duration of the storm, also mitigating all sorts of different incidents, having them eat on the move. So I'm really proud of our team. Our facilities and resources team was here on the weekend. David and Mr. Novus were here, and same thing. They're helping us man power lines down. There was a very, very large tree over Moonstone. Not even really our responsibility in terms of that deep into Moonstone, but David and his crews, Mr. Aguirre and his crews went out there and mitigated it. So all kudos to our staff. They did a phenomenal job. So I'm super proud of them. Moving on, February 23rd, we'll do another Meet the GM along with the fire chief from 8:30 in the morning till 7. So please, if you have any comments, concerns, things going on with the district, we'd love to hear from you and come by. We are hiring for an administrative technician 2 front desk position. So that's up on the website. IWMA has completed their education and outreach visits within Cambria. We will connect with them more because there's ongoing grant opportunities to perhaps extend that further on into the year. We are working with Director Dean and ad hoc committee with the adaptation planning grant program round 2. We're working on different aspects of that, different grants to target. So that's ongoing. Our confidential administrative assistant has done some great things with our website management as far as board meetings and archiving them. They're now into tabs based on the year. So we find that's a little easier to navigate. So we're proud of Mrs. Dodson for cleaning that up for us. Makes it a little bit easier to navigate when you're trying to research archives of our board meetings. We want to welcome a new employee to our facilities and resources department. Mr. Mora is our new maintenance technicians for the facilities and resources department. He's been here about a week and a half, 2 weeks, and he's doing a great job. Our East Ranch restroom, it's at the planning process with the county. So as soon as we can get through that planning process, we'll order the prefabricated bathroom with about a 240-day lead time. And Mr. Green is going to have some much more detailed reports out from the utilities department. We're continuing to work with the federal government in terms of Section 106 for the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and that's for our grant for the Cambria Skate Park. And that is ongoing, but so far we are on track. The Cambria Rotary Peace Garden project is a project that a local community group is working on, creating a picket fence with some painted slats that are from our kids in the community. And so we're working with the Legion. We'll bring that before pros, and they will go in that peace garden area, which we'll clean up a little bit. So that's a project we're working on. The chief and I are working on the AFG grant, Assistance to Firefighter grant, and that's going to be closing here within the next 6 to 7 months. And so we're targeting some grants for the fire department, perhaps apparatus or larger, some more vehicles for our fire protection within the district. Zero liquid discharge, I'm sure Mr. Green will have an update on that, but we did have a meeting with Mr. Clark Easter They're working on coordination between their accounting manager and Lawrence Livermore Labs for the ZLD pilot unit. And so that's partially constructed, but there's still some financing requirements that need to be tightened up before we move on with that. We did talk about our project description last week in depth for the WRF. That we are making some of those edits and changes as we discussed last week with the board. We have sent over a preliminary draft to the county for their review on more of the technical aspects of it. We're gonna have a meeting on February 20th with the county to gather some of their input on where we may be deficient in that project description. There's ongoing work with our adaptive management plan, and we'll have some more updates on that here shortly. And with that, I'll probably leave it there because I know Mr. Green has a lot more to fill in.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. McElhenney. Any questions for Mr. McElhenney from the directors? Director Farmer.
Yes, thank you, President Gray. I just a little bit of clarification for us board members and members of the public with regard to the zero liquid discharge, where it says construction of a working pilot is underway, and then it says the mobile ZLD unit is partially constructed. So perhaps you can let us know, like some of us might think, well, it's happening right here, in Cambria. So maybe just some clarification as to where it's taking place and when it might arrive in our community.
Absolutely, Director Farmer. It's not being constructed in the community. I would have to check with Mr. Easter. I believe it's down south, Mr. Green, is where the pilot project itself is being constructed down south, and once that's completed, it'll be brought up to us. As far as timeline goes, we were thinking within the next month.
We'll have a better timeline is for completion of the pilot, and then where Clark is at with the funding portion of that. So we're probably 4 to 6 months out from scheduling that pilot.
All right, thank you.
But I believe the construction of the pilot unit might be finished within the next 4 to 6 weeks. But we're going to have a follow-up meeting with them.
All right, thanks.
Mr. Thomas, Director Thomas.
Thank you, President Gray. Just 2 questions. And on page 11, perhaps you could give us the thumbnail of what, I'm sorry, on page 9, a thumbnail of what section 106 entails. And then on the public records requests on page 13, I just wanted to check, there's one that's blank, and I'm just wondering if that's, if I'm missing something there. Those are the 2 questions I have.
Yes, Director Thomas. Let me look at, see the blank, I believe, is a continuation of Mrs. Heinrich's.
We responded to her request twice.
And then for your question about procedure for 106, it's basically all the projects recommended for the National Park Service for federal funding have to go through National Historic Preservation Act, Native American tribes, to see if anywhere where we're putting this project affects any of those different areas. So there's different forms in terms of our initial contact with the federal agency, then reaching out to each tribal group and meet for consultation. There's a ongoing Office of Historic Preservation checklist in 106, which we have here. There is the APE approval. I don't know what that acronym is at the minute. A findings letter once we've completed the 106 form, which we send back to our grant manager.
Thank you. Any questions from directors? Is there anyone wish to make a public comment on the general manager's report? Ms. Dodson, are there any comments, either written or online?
Yes, Elizabeth Benhausen, followed by Laura and Crosby Swartz.
Ms. Bettenhausen?
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 3 questions. The first, could you elaborate, please, on the status of the federal grant in relationship to the skate park? I find your description very vague and would like a little more specificity. I still find 106 vague. That's number 2. I think that you just read some of the specifics, but they were as vague as the general statement. So where are we in 106, for example? Are we any nearer than we were to the awarding of the grant, which might take through the rest of 2004, et cetera? I just like clarification on the timing and the specificity. And number 3, I'm a bit surprised to hear that a preliminary draft has been sent over to the county already, even before the 20th of February. I am very confused about the draft on the WRF. And I'm more confused having sat through the meeting last week. What exactly is the preliminary draft, the draft that they worked on last Thursday, and the final draft on that they're supposed to send over on the February 20th, and any other drafts you might come up with? Please be more elaborate about your specification of when the drafts are due and when they are going to be submitted in total to the County Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bettenhausen. As for responding to the questions, I think it'd be best if we did the comments first, and then if you wish to respond, any of the staff wish to respond, they can do that then. So, excuse me. So moving along, I think to the Crosby Aurora Swartz.
Yes, good morning, President
morning.
Craig and everybody. Yeah, I guess I'm just as confused as Elizabeth is. The thing is, on that, watching the meeting last week, I thought that permit, the draft was going to be amended before it was sent to the county, and I thought the public would know how it was amended before it was sent to the county. And I guess I was confused. It was on the agenda to be considered and voted on last week. So I thought the board had a vote on sending it over to the county. See, I am confused also. Please help us with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schwartz. Yeah, if you wish to respond, General Manager McElhenney.
Absolutely, President Great. The Section 106 document that we have to do for the grant has to do with a lot of our Native American, National Historic Preservation Act. There's just different forms that we have to fill out. Again, we contact all the Native American tribes within California to see if anything that we're doing within this grant, specifically where our piece of land is, affects any one of those stakeholders. That's really it. As it's just the process where we have been moved forward, one of 16 projects move forward. This is just a part of the steps. I can place some more information in my GM letter that will really outline it line by line by line. That'll be a little more specific. It's a federal process, but we're on track. So as far as that goes, I can give some more details within the letter. That's actually going out on Friday. So as far as the project description, yes, it is a draft. Yes, it's coming back before the board. There was no action taken last week. Everybody reviewed the draft. We made comments. There's edits coming. That doesn't mean that the county can't provide their input on its current draft, then provide some input on it, come back to the board, review it again. If the board decides to kick it back for more revisions, then that's what we'll do. The county is one of our stakeholders that's looking at the technical aspect of the document. My opinion was a lot of the commentary that was had at the February 8th meeting was not on the technical side of the document as much as our stakeholders at the county and the Coastal Commission will be looking at. So they are reviewing a lot of the technical aspects of the document. They will have input on where we're like, again, it's an informal meeting, an informal review. It is not a submission. It is literally just trying to gain some insight. Part of the barriers that we have had in moving this project description forward is that we haven't had very good communication with the county and the Coastal Commission. So I believe, staff believes we've done what has been asked of us in terms of moving this project forward. And that takes collaboration. It takes discussion with our stakeholders that have a final say on the document. When they give their input on our document, we'll take that into account, make the changes as necessary, in addition to the changes that the board asked for, and we will bring it back once again. We are not operating autonomously or trying to do anything behind the community's back, submitting anything behind the community's back. It's just merely gaining information. And besides the public input and the board direction, we still have to get past the county and get the approval at the county level. So in staff's opinion, and I think we've been pretty transparent about it, we want the county's opinion on that document. And so we can have that information and move it forward successfully.
Thank you. Also, I should ask for written comment if there is any. Ms. Dodson?
No.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you, General Manager McElhenney. We'll move on to the Facilities and Resources Manager report. Mr. Aguirre?
Sorry, my computer's slow.
Okay. We're loading a presentation, I think, right? Yeah. There we go.
President Gray and the directors, I want to say thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a hectic deal since the last rainstorm that we came through. I know we kind of been shorthanded. I know we were still down to one person for about almost a little over a month and a half, almost 2 months. So I got to hand it out to Alberto Novas in regards of his dedication that he's put in the time that we've been out there on our own, just him and I running around. So this one here, this shows the Monday right after the storm that came through. We had quite a few trees that came down with the Fiscalini Ranch. So we've been working with our the new gentleman that turned around and came on. We've been out there diligently turning around, training him, making sure that he has the right understanding on what we're doing out there. Cleaning the trails, getting everything all cleaned up, bucked, so that way it's still properly cleared for the public, and also the hazardous trees that we took a report on and worked with the Fiscalini Ranch, Kitty Conley on that one there, just in regards of taking the inventory, getting ready for the dry point. That's what we've been doing. There was a trail that we ended up closing, the one there that we had. A couple people ended up slipping and falling, so we ended up putting trail closures out there, which they are currently still out there, and I know they've been set aside. So we'll be going back out, turn around and reposition them in the middle of the trail so that everybody is aware for safety reasons. So the road clearing, like Chief Berkey and the GM had mentioned, this is one of the ones that was off of Moonstone that we ended up getting notification on. Berto and I, and also the water department, we went out there, and it took a good minute to turn around and remove that one from the road. The county showed up at the very end, and they turned around and asked, "Where'd you guys come from?" It was kind of funny, but we turned around and we got it done. You guys got 10 minutes left, and we'll go from there. So yeah, we ended up clearing that so that way it didn't obstruct the road, so that way passage can still go through. So these here are the ones that were on Fern Trail. We had some that came down right along the trail there. We ended up bucking that. We had a good size tree that came down and blocked off the one off of Camborne at the very top. So this was actually, like I said, on that Monday where the new guy started. When he came in, he really did not know what he was getting himself into. There's a lot of labor on this one here. I did the lower end, the top view was myself, and then the top one was actually them. They did the work on that one there. Clearing that is a big thing. I know a matter of 24 hours after we got done doing this, we had another 100-foot tree that turned around and came down. It crossed the creek, crossed the trail, so we cleared the trail. I know there's a concern about cleaning out the creek. Now that's a whole different ballgame because now you're dealing with fish and wildlife and everything else of that nature. We're looking into it. Everything with all these trails, it's everything that's off around them besides what's on it, the hazardous trees, the clearance, everything that we're looking at. And this is what we're going to be doing and pushing forward with our weed abatement and everything else that's coming up here actually next 2 weeks, next month, we're going to be pushing that pretty hard. So with everything that we've done, I know there's multiple things that we've been part of. This one here, the recruitment update, yes, we did end up hiring Oscar Mora in regards of a position here in the facilities and resource. He is here of Cambria. Great gentleman. I'll be introducing him next month at our board meeting. So with him, like I said, he came in, he got his boots pretty dirty and also his hands pretty dirty also in the midst. He's been here roughly about 7-8 days. So he's learning quite a bit. It's been a push to get him up to speed because we are actually, we did fall a little bit behind. The weed abatement, like I said, we are turning around and getting that all started. We're actually going around doing assessment of a lot of the lots, looking basically weed eating. That's going to be the biggest thing already starting. We're reducing a lot of that fuel before it even gets to that point. We're also looking at East Ranch, doing some edge cutting, stuff of that nature, and getting this new individual trained. Because that's the biggest thing. Throwing him behind a tractor and also chainsaws is a big concern for me. So I've been out there training him one-on-one and also with Alberto side-by-side, learning how to use the chipper. Safety is going to be the biggest thing because this is not an everyday job that we do. The facilities improvements, the F&R building. So we're currently completely out of here at the Vets Hall. We're back over at the facility over there. The offices are going to be up and running hopefully by Friday afternoon. We have the people coming in to turn around and do all the tech. So then we're going to be switching, working on the shop, getting that dialed in. I know our concern is about the flooding. So one of the things that I have done is reached out to a lot of different resources for office equipment, or let alone just basically anything that has to do with what we do. Getting a lot of stuff donated, a lot of free stuff, lightweight, such as like our kitchen. We turned around and changed everything from cabinetry to stainless steel tables. Anything that's mobile. I mean, you can pressure wash and clean it. I know it comes back down to more the infrastructure of the sheetrocking and materials of that nature. It's just not knowing how Mother Nature is going to treat us in the next 3 to 5 years. Because I know our anticipation about moving is going to be basically prolonged until about that time. So this is where we're at. Everything that we have down there is mobile. We can turn around, pick it up, reload it, put it in a trailer and move it. That was my biggest thing that I looked at. So that would save us in the long run on that one there. And we're still going to be working with the Friends of Fiscalini. I know we had a crew out there yesterday, which was kind of a little hiccup. They turned around and got stuck. So we thought it was dry enough. You got a certain point. Shade does make a big factor. They turned around and I already got some phone calls. That's actually where I was coming from out there at the ranch, looking at some stuff that we're going to be reassessing, regrading. Once everything starts lightening, as for the rain and the weather, we're going to be going out and touching up the trails. Just a big concern from the community. I know the trails are a dial thing, and we're getting wood chips, getting them covered, and trying to protect everything and refeathering everything that we ended up disturbing out there for the habitat. That's everything that I have so far.
That's quite a lot. Thank you, Mr. Aguirre. That's a very good report. Any questions from the board? Dr. Farmer.
Thank you, President Gray. Thank you, Mr. Aguirre, for your report. I have a couple of comments to make, not so much on your report. I'm glad that Mr. Mora, by the way, is still here after what you're describing, but I'm going to make a couple of comments on items in the expense report. Okay, so first off, with regard to the clocks for the Vets Hall for $240. Now, I spoke with the general manager about that, and apparently you got us a pretty good deal on these clocks. So I know one thing, we here on the board want to commend you for that, and these clocks are going to be here a long time. So I want to thank you for going the extra mile to take care of this particular item. Also, I noticed that Mission Women, there's like a bill for $2,400 for new shirts and hats for facilities and resources. And I was wondering, well, man, why the heck did they have to have so many shirts and hats for F&R? But I think you've kind of just in your presentation today let us know how much what they wear gets worn down in a fairly brief period of time when you've got demands on the work that the work that they do.
Correct. On that notion there, we did end up ordering for our previous employee, Martine. Garcia that had turned around and left the district. We did order his clothes because I actually had them do an inventory. They were wearing about 4 to 5 shirts throughout the week. And I know one of our requirements is the 10 shirts. We look at what they've already been used and abused, and we replace them as we go. Just looking at some of the stuff between the stains, the different, the wear that they had on there, I turned and told them, you know what, hey, we're going to bust it out. We're going to do it, start it off clean. You guys have a little bit more. So now with Oscar that has come on, the new employee, Mission has given me a pretty good deal on it to where they're just putting patches over Martine shirts because they were ordered. So we were able to return those and get those taken care of. So he's covered for the year, and same with Alberto. He was another one too. We ended up going through the inventory, and it was quite a bit. So yeah, between the pine sap and all the different stains that they had on them. So.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Ms. Dodson, is there any public comment online? First of all, is there any public comment from the people in the hall? Ms. Dodson, any online comment?
No.
Any comment in writing?
No.
No, thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Guri. I have to go back to work now, right?
You got it. You guys have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye. Finance Manager's report, Ms. Fritz.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, President,
afternoon.
Directors. It's safe. So I'm presenting the Finance Manager's report, and we're just business as usual, kind of in the Finance Department. We're halfway through the year, and along with my just usual monthly metrics in that report, I wanted to update you all on our audit progress. And, you know, the field work is complete. They are working on getting me a draft document. I hope to be able to get that before the Finance Committee, either by the March meeting, or we're talking about potentially early April, pushing that meeting to early April with getting the report before the board the April board meeting would be best case scenario. May would be the latest to get the final draft report before the board. So that is all the updates that I have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fritz. Any questions from directors? Any comment, public comment? From those in the hall and Ms. Dodson? Any public comment online or in writing?
No.
Thank you. Without any further questions, I'll move on to the Utilities Manager report.
Good afternoon, and thank you, President Gray and directors. I'm pleased to bring you the January 2024 Utilities Report. We'll begin with wastewater. Doesn't look like a whole bunch on paper here, but it was an extremely busy month for us at the plant. The heavy rains in January caused some bulking issues in our aeration basins and clarifiers. What happens with that is the hydraulic load, it comes in so fast. We're receiving over 1 million gallons a day. That's over 694 gallons a minute. The plant's meant to process at 500 GPM and under, and that's its optimum processing rate. So when that happens, a little thing called short circuiting occurs. And that's when, instead of going through the filtration and the treatment process, it kind of blows through that. About 40% of it gets the treatment process correct. The other portion kind of blows through onto the end. So you get some solids and some bulking in our finishing ponds. So what we've had to go on and do is, we love our semi-new vac truck, but we get that out with our vacuum trailer, and we take high pressure hose and we spray the solids that bulk on top, and we suck that back up into the vac trailer and then return that to the headwork. So it's quite a lengthy process. We're kind of touching our inventory twice, which isn't as efficient as we'd like to be, but we've made some treatment processing changes to that, where we're using, we discussed the new polymer several months ago. We've upped the dosage on that, which has helped reduce some of the bulking loads. Fortunately, without the rain, the last couple of weeks, we've caught up and we've got our process back down to where it should be. And of course, with the rains coming up, we'll probably have to start all over again with that. But that's some of the ongoings there at the plant. The water pump at generator B3 was replaced along with radiator hoses and the fan belt. This, again, we're just continuing preventive maintenances to keep our lift stations, all 9 of them up and running, especially during these heavy storm events. We've also taken on Aqueduct for plant sample control. I don't want to confuse that with our SCADA, which is our scientific control and data acquisition. This is just for plant samples. So we have several analytic devices throughout the plant, pre and post, before and after treatment, after treatment. All that records and information has to get disseminated to regional water quality. This is a program that helps us do that. It makes it clear and helps us in our reporting down the line for the next month. And then at the end of the year, which brings me to been working closely with Superintendent Artho and Program Director Tristan Reaper to kind of complete that annual report there for wastewater, which is a huge report. Each year, these annual reports to our state regulation entities, they get longer. I can remember the first electronic annual water report I did for the water department years ago was about 7 pages long. It's now 107 pages. And so the same kind of things are occurring in the wastewater plant. So these just get bigger and more detailed. So we're kind of taking on those few issues there. During the month, we were able to get out into the collection system where we cleaned out just under a half mile of the collection system. And those locations are noted on the staff report as well. If the public has any occurrence of what they figure like a slow lateral or slow drains, please reach out to us. We have camera equipment and we'd love to get the wastewater truck, our new VACON truck out there and put it to use and free up those drains and get them flowing appropriately. That concludes the wastewater portion of it. I'd like to bring Superintendent Cody Meeks up and he can discuss the water department activities for the month of January.
Greetings. Hello. Hit the button there. That's it.
We're good.
That's
Test
right.
tech. There we go.
You sounds like you're.
right.
Sounds like you're there. Yes.
So good afternoon, President Gray and board. I like to go over the January report for the water department. Starting off with a larger leak that we had on January 23rd on the 900 block of Northampton. So we got a service call for water bubbling up from the street. Our on-call operator responded and it was a rather large leak. We attempted to excavate and the water coming out of the ground exceeded what our vacuum trailer could handle. We were just sucking up water. We weren't making any progress on getting down to the leak, so we had to shut down the main. It was a 10-inch transmission main, and as you can see in the photo, it was a leak in the corpse stop. On page 21, there's a photo on the right with 2 water service lines on it. The left service in the brass is the hole, and that's very unusual for us to have these kind of leaks. So it is a very large leak. So once we were able to shut down, we replaced the corpse stop, and then we noticed right next to it is the service line for an air vac. There's dissimilar metals on the air vac off the saddle, and when we attempted to remove the 90-degree street stop, the thread snapped inside of the saddle. We attempted to excavate out the threads and had no luck, so we went down to the shop, grabbed a new saddle, swapped the saddles, and brought water back to everyone in the street. We flushed hydrants, sent off water analytics for testing, and returned the next day to properly replace both of the service lines running from the main up to the meter and from the main to the air vac. We were trenched in the rain. It rained a lot that day. It caught us off guard. And we were able to get the new air vac in along with a complete connection to the water meter. The following day, we poured concrete and put up the enclosure. We also replaced 5 frozen angle stops and completed a leak on Wellington Street. At the beginning of the month, we received notice from PG&E that on Saturday, January 13th, from 4 to 5 p.m., there'd be a scheduled power loss. Later on during the month, they retracted that power loss. However, on January 13th at 4 p.m., the power loss occurred at 2 of our sites. Our on-call operator handled both of these issues by turning on the generator at rodeo grounds and the well field for analytics. Power returned by 2 a.m. On January 23rd, a tree fell over on Burton Street, knocking out power to rodeo grounds. Our on-call operator handled the situation before the workday began. The on-site generator was turned on and the power supply powered the booster station. At Stewart Street, we removed 14 dead trees. We sought 3 bids to different contractors, and we had them removed so we could begin the Stewart Street tanks. On page 24, there's a couple before and after photos and work progress going on. And then we began the month with billing cycle meter reads. We worked with the administration staff to generate a list of unread water meters due to our failing touchscreen on the radio read laptop. We attempted to use a plug-in mouse while in the truck, but that just was way too slow. So working with admin, they were able to generate us a list of 2,700 unread meters. We were able to split the list amongst the water department, and we finished the list by January, I should say February, or was it? Yeah, January 11th. WRF, weekly preservation occurred of mixing the chemical around and recording the pH. And that'll do it.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions from the directors? Director Dean.
I just have a comment for Mr. Green. Are you calling the waste solids inventory?
Yes.
That's interesting. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's a non-technical term we use in the industry.
Any other questions or from the directors? I had a question actually for Mr. Green on the what happens when it rains at the wastewater plant, the overload from the collection system. Are there any preventive things that can be done to make that less of a problem, or is it just the nature of the system?
Yes, there are. What we do is we bypass, we split our headworks, so that way it's still overloaded and it's optimum rate for treatment, but we take an extra 200, 300 gallons a minute, we divert it to basically storage for the interim, and then we come back and reprocess that as it slows down. That's also an ECM on the SST coming up, where we'll have a 500,000 gallon, or probably about 250,000 gallon equalization bin. So as those huge high flows come in, we can still process at the same rate and kind of hold it back and then continue processing. So that way we don't experience these bulking and treatment issues in processing in the future. So it's something we're looking forward to when we get into the redesign of the plant there.
Okay. Thank you. If no further questions, I'll invite public comment. Anybody in the hall here wish to comment? Is there any comment online or in writing?
No.
Thank you. Oh, Director Farmer has his light on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, for some reason, I guess I'm making more comments than I usually do, but I just wanted to, I noticed on more than one occasion, the on-call person in both water and wastewater was like up in the middle of the night. And that can't be easy. I know it's part of the job, but still, it's good to have that type of situation taking place where somebody can immediately respond to whatever emergency is taking place.
Right. We also, on these huge storm events for water and wastewater side, much like our fire department, we have a second on-call operator. That doesn't mean they're on staff earning wages. They're simply kind of hanging out, waiting by the phone, waiting for trouble to hit. And we utilize that in wastewater this last time. It wasn't necessary for water. We will also have backup staff for this Sunday for this weekend's events. And, I want to share some kind words with our Chief Berkey. In my history here, the fire department and utilities department has never worked so seamlessly as they have. in the last several months. So I appreciate his kind words. It's a pleasure to work with him. And again, we're a team, and it's nice to feel that support. You know, when you're getting a call from your fire captain, hey, look out over here at Burton and Cambria, it makes a world of difference. So yeah, it is a team effort, and I appreciate all of his kind words, and it's a pleasure to work with him.
If I can just make one more observation, only because we're on water and wastewater right now, I'm just moving forward once again to the expenditure report. And you probably have covered this maybe at a previous meeting, and I've just neglected to remember it. But under Hartzell Engineering, the manor waste service line removal and installation, almost $12,000. So obviously this is some emergency that took place that needed to be addressed. How problematic was that? How much time did it take to address that and take care of it?
Very good. So that's a private drive on Manor Way. It's a service line that spans over 70 feet. And in my terms there, since I've been on staff, we've probably been there 3 times to repair leaks. So that's too many times for me. But we've been there numerous times before. It's quite a huge undertaking. It goes under and over and around several other utilities there on site. And so we decided to bring in the professionals who have the bigger equipment, the boring tools, and that to have it professionally done, so that way we don't trouble the poor services there anymore with interruption in service and our construction and excavating there. You will see an additional charge coming in as soon as we get into the drier season here. We'll be recoating their drive there, their private drive as well, to kind of make up for all the harm that we've done throughout the years with leaks and trenching up their beautiful street. So we're going to be working on that in the future there too. But that was to replace a single line again. Director Farmer, that was about 70 foot long, in some places more than 4 foot deep in excavation. Anything over 4 foot deep requires trenching and certain things that we just don't have for our day in, day out use, even in emergency situations. So that's why you see that charge from Hartzell Construction.
Well, thanks for having all those details at your, I don't know if I could say fingertips, but obviously somewhere up here. So thanks very much.
Very good. Would you guys like to cover any other projects while I'm here?
Well, I was going to ask if you want, the project summary table, I want to ask if anybody had any questions about that, but maybe this additional part of the report. Anybody have, first of all, have any questions on the project summary table? Because it sounds like it's very, very comprehensive. But did you have any comments to make on it? Just
maybe I want to circle back to the CDP. We're talking about the preliminary or the draft project description that we released. That was a professional courtesy that was requested by county staff, so that way they'd have time in reviewing it even before this initial meeting. So that's why we had that kind of push to put that out there. It was at their request, and again, just a professional courtesy. And we're kind of going about this lockstep with the county, and that's why some of those statements were kind of intentionally vague. We're leaving the county up to them to kind of tighten up a lot of those features and metrics of that project description.
Thank you. Director Dean.
Okay, so I also wanted to point out that at the R&I committee meeting, Mr. Green went over a thorough report on the San Simeon Wellfield Transmission Main project, including showing the options for the path.
Alignment.
Yeah, for the path. And so I guess anyone can watch the R&I meeting and see all that, but are you going to be bringing we are going to be bringing that before
Absolutely, yeah. We'll bring the full report and staff report to the board for appraisal.
And we also had a presentation on the Stewart Street tanks and picked out the colors.
Oh, I heard about it.
Torque tan.
Torque tan.
Torque tan, yes. It sounds like, looks like a good color for a water tank. Yeah. It's not too shocking. It fits in. Anyway, so any more questions? I guess, yes, Vice President Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a request for the project summary table. Mm-hmm. When you're adding new information, if you could make it a different color type.
Okay. We've discussed that internally. Usually I color it purple.
Yeah.
I think your favorite color.
Yeah.
And to not confuse things, we've kind of changed that to just black on black, but I'd be glad to change
That'd
that
be
back in the
great.
future. Yeah,
That'd be
absolutely.
helpful for me.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to suggest something like that too, because I think it's a mix of old and new, and it's always good to see what the updates are.
Yeah, I try and provide some context in there
Yeah.
for those reading for the first time. And then usually later on, or the latter of it is the updates, within the week and so forth. So, yeah.
Director Farmer.
Yeah, I was going to make the comment, thank you, President Gray, that since both of the ladies on the board here, their favorite color is purple. So I think just having a little purple in the report probably would just make them feel better.
It'll spice up some,
and less male gender too. So
yeah, it'll spice up some boring content. So yeah, we'd love to do that.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further questions, comments, or discussion on the reports, we'll move on to the next item, which is the consent agenda. Wait, no, we did finance manager. We had, that's okay, thank you. Yeah, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. There are two items on the consent agenda. They're expenditure report and two weeks worth of minutes. All matters on the consent calendar are to be approved by one motion. Directors wish to discuss a consent item other than simple clarifying questions, a request for removal may be made. So at this point, would any directors want to pull one of those items for separate consideration? So now, first of all, we'll ask for any questions for clarification from the directors if they have any. Simple questions. And I'll turn it over to any public comment that people wish to make.
Yes, Elizabeth Bettenhausen.
Ms. Bettenhausen, please proceed.
Well, Mr. President, actually, I'm still on the last item because you never call for public comment on the SWF. So I would make a comment about that, except that I can't.
Yeah, I thought we had asked for a comment on the utilities report, but if you have a brief comment to make, please do.
Well, I'm just asking for the update on the question number 2 that I posed under the general manager's report, because that had to do with the grant funding for the zero liquid discharge plant that's getting more complicated the further we go through this agenda. And there are 3 different versions of it, his simple version, and then 2 more complicated. I'd like simply to know which of the grants, which proposals and what the requirements are, and is this funding for the pilot project or for the actual plant? So that's completely vague, as the reports are. So please update me on that with something more clear and simple and straightforward than the reports in the paper and the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can touch on that if
you can
like,
touch on that.
Okay. The grant funding being awarded for the ZLD project is not being awarded to the district. It is being awarded to Global Water Innovations. They're handling all the monetary exchange and AP, AR of that project. They're just simply facilitating all that for us. So none of those funds will go through our hands or will cost us anything as far as that pilot project, except for obviously the operations thereof. Right. So yeah, we're not receiving any fundings or any grant fundings for this. This is all going directly to Global Water Innovations.
Okay, thank you.
I hope that's clear.
Just to make sure I didn't miss anything, is there any more public comment on the utilities report?
No.
No, thank you. Okay, good. So we will move on to consent agenda. I'll pick up where we left off. People, if anybody wants to comment on the consent agenda now, it's the time to do it. Or is there any public comment on the consent agenda?
No.
Oh, okay. And no questions from the board? I'll entertain a motion. Dr. Farmer?
I just want to make one minor correction. This is for the minutes of January 18th on page 69. Under number 2, board member communications, where it says Director Farmer reported FFRP is having their annual meeting this Saturday at 10 a.m. at CCAT, and that should be CCAT, which is the Cambria Center for the Arts. So that's all I noticed. Thanks.
It's duly noted. And I'll entertain a motion now, actually, to approve the consent agenda with that correction made. Dr. Dean?
I move that we approve the consent agenda with the correction that Director Farmer just reported.
I guess I should second that then. Thanks.
So moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda with the correction noted by Director Farmer. Could I have a roll call, please?
Yes, Director Dean?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
Director Thomas?
Aye.
Vice President Scott?
Aye.
President Gray?
Aye. Moving on to regular business. We have time. I think we should move ahead here. This item 7A is to receive and file the second quarter budget report for fiscal year 2023-24. And Ms. Fritz, maybe you could introduce the item.
Thank you, President Gray. I have agenda item 7A, which is receive and file the second quarter budget report. During this second quarter of 2023-24, the board has approved budget adjustments for the emergency water main repair on Main Street for up to $300,000 and replacement of the San Simeon Well 3 pump for $45,000. Those two budget adjustments are included in this report, and there's no additional budget adjustments being requested with the second quarter budget report. 50% of the year has been completed, and this so far, so that is what is represented in this report. And the Finance Committee did review the second quarter budget report and recommended approval by a 4-0 vote. So I wanted to speak a little bit about the revenue numbers in this report. There's some timing issues that we have with the water and wastewater revenues coming in, as well as with property taxes, which is common, and we deal with this every year. I did verify the water and wastewater revenue rates. Those have been entered into the system. We're on track to meet our budget numbers for the year. We are pretty much right on track of collecting 50% of the budgeted amount. So we're right on track with that, as well as I got an update from the county. They give us a mid-year update on property taxes, and even though they're really slow to get us those property taxes, they're actually projecting a little bit more than what was budgeted for on property taxes. So we will see those start to come in, and we'll be allocating them to the departments. So when you look through each of these reports, you will see that we're in a deficit in every department, but it is those timing issues with the revenue. I'm not concerned about it. Those revenues are coming, they're flowing as they should and as they normally do. Outside of that emergency water main repair of, I think we spent 160. So you all approved up to 300. We spent 160. There's really been no out of unplanned budgetary expenditures. So if you have any questions specifically about different departments, I'm happy to answer those questions for you.
There's a question, I think, from Vice President Scott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say thanks for the preliminary information and that things are looking good. Because when I read it initially the first time, it was like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? So that kind of information for me is really important, and I appreciate that you spelled that out for us.
Director Thomas.
Apologies, my light is on from the last vote.
So you're not, you have no comment this time. Okay, thank you, thank you. Any other questions from the board? I just had a quick question about the timing of the revenues. You mentioned that the county, of course, collects the taxes and then distributes them to us. What's the lag time typically? Because the first round of property taxes were due. I think the late date was December 10th. So I assume most of them came in before that. But they were. I think part of the deficit is that they hadn't shown up by the end of the first half of the fiscal year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they're trying to send us property taxes every month, which is from my limited experience, because I've only been here for a year and a half now. Before, they would send us a check, from what I could see, like every few months. There didn't really seem to be a clear. Right now, they're trying to send me. They send me a reconciliation monthly and checks monthly. I don't think we received a check in December. So I would have to go back and I'd have to map out exactly what the timing is. And if I do go and refer to last year's to see, am I missing something? Should I be? And they do give me regular reconciliation so I can reconcile what we've deposited versus what they're showing on their records, and we do match. So I think they're just slow, but I don't know if, what the actual timing is. I'd have to go research that a little bit. And
it's good to know. It's just we do have to. Everybody has to understand that when the taxes are paid, they don't just
No.
go to us right away.
No.
Just what I think what some of our questions were about in the.
And they do communicate clearly through the
Yeah.
year. Like right now, they did give me an update, and this is where you're projected to be by the end of the year. So that's comforting
Okay,
when
good. Thank
they
you.
do communicate in that
Yeah.
way.
Any more questions from the board? Director Farmer.
It's not necessarily a question, but I just want to make a couple of comments on page 137. And obviously this will be coming up, when we do the next budget. I know there are folks in the community that are somewhat concerned, at times alarmed, at costs that come up that the district has to deal with, having to raise rates and that type of thing. And folks kind of question, well, how competent is the board or the staff or whatever? So I just want to point out two of the most expensive items, basically, underwater distribution projects and tank and booster pumps. So the wellfield transmission line, $5 million. Rodeo Grounds pump station replacement, $2.2 million. Obviously, these were both unanticipated, but serious financial challenges that we're going to have in the future. And so I just want to point out that when these come up and they really need to be dealt with, and the ratepayers, like I say, are probably going to be a bit concerned as to whatever happens as we try to get these funds, that these are not things that anybody anticipated, and they're problems that we have to deal with. And maybe I'm out of line in saying this, but I just want to say thank God for the competent staff that we have that takes care of these problems in one fashion or another. And however these get taken care of and however much it costs, all of us, staff and board as well, are doing the best we can to deal with these problems. I just felt like that was something I needed to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Farmer. Vice President Scott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I just have a question about on page 136, and this is under all of the completed projects. It doesn't have a fiscal year project cost. That's always blank. And so for me, that's a little bit confusing because I do see costs in the expense report that we're looking at this fiscal year. So it would be helpful for me to have that column filled out about what kind of costs we had this year related to those completed projects. And my other question is, were they budgeted and did we meet the budget on them? And I don't know if this is the document where you want to put that stuff, but it just seems like there's information missing.
Does anyone want to address that, Mr. McLean or Ms. Fritz?
Yes, Vice President Scott,
Yeah.
President Gray.
Yeah.
those are completed projects. However, we do have the Vector truck in there, which we do have a loan on at that 4.5% rate. And you'll see it in the expenditure report where we made a payment on that loan. And that's not represented here. So I'm sure we can add that. As far as fiscal year project cost to the rest of the items, since they're completed and there's no actual fiscal year cost associated with them, but yet the Vector truck there is. Say that correct?
Yeah. Ms. Ritz? Yeah.
I was just going to say yes, there's no fiscal year cost with any of the completed items. And then, I mean, I didn't catch the Vector truck, and, you know, I hesitate with whether to keep it up in current until it's all paid off. Because to me, completed is we're done paying for it. So we can talk about that maybe in finance or when we're going over the CIP report, because we are making changes to this report. And so that's
Right.
going to come back before the board. So I think that would be a good discussion of what you want to see in the completed.
Right. Yeah, I was going to make the comment that we are, and maybe Director Dean can also add something. The new format has a little more information, relevant information on these items, and it's going to be in the new budget. But this is still the old format, which had some deficiencies, I guess, in terms of presentation that we've tried to correct. Dr. Dean?
I was just going to say, yes, we did bring a new format before the board, but it's not completed yet. And the ad hoc committee at R&I has been working with Mr. Green on updating the ranking and priorities on this. And also, we talked about changing the headers of the completed projects. So it will show the year it was completed and what it cost, all of that. Right. So we did talk about changing that part of it on this document. Yeah. So I believe the CIP ad hoc committee is going to be bringing a report to R&I. I think you said April?
In April, and it'll be in the new format as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to the finance committee too.
It'll go to finance first. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much, yes. For the questions, I will, Dr. Farmer.
Yeah, pardon me, President Gray. I guess so I just noticed here on page 136 under wastewater CIP. So we have the item here, reroute effluent line around state parks, $2.5 million. And then the one that I referenced earlier about the San Simeon Wellfield transmission main line at $5 million. So these are kind of being done at the same time. So I'm just wondering, is the $5 million for the Wellfield transmission line, does that does in some fashion also include part of the cost of this item here, rerouting the line around state parks? I mean, can they be coordinated together? And
so that, yes, they will. It'll be one project, the water transmission line and the wastewater effluent line.
Right.
They'll be done as one project, obviously not at the same time. And we've gotten estimates now in for construction now that we've narrowed the alternatives alignments analysis down to 4. We're looking just under $2 million. So that was a lofty $5 million number because we just had no real basis to extrapolate off of. So we put a rather large number out there, but that will be $2 million or under.
Just to elaborate on that question, so that the effluent line and the supply line, water supply line, are each of those $2 million?
Nope. They'll basically
the
be about
total
$1
is
million
$2 million.
each. Yeah, it'll be about $900,000 each.
Okay, so the whole project for both lines.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very good news.
And we'll use that Highline bypass line that we have currently now for water. We'll use that. We'll hook up the new water line, and then we'll turn that over and use that bypass line for the wastewater line when we install the wastewater line. So we'll use all the materials we currently have on hand. So there won't be any other, we won't have 2,000 feet of wasted line that we just used for a month while we did this installation. So we're trying to be as effective and cost prohibitive as we can with that.
Okay. Any more, Dr. Farmer?
Thanks very much.
Thank you. I'll turn this over to public comment now. If anybody wishes in the hall to comment. Ms. Dodson, does anybody wish to comment online or in writing?
Yes, Laura and Crosby Swartz.
Laura and Crosby?
Yes, good afternoon again. Good afternoon. Just a question. I'm always interested in the numbers. On the county, going back to the county taxes, are there any agreements of how soon they're supposed to turn the money over to us? It seems to me that this is another area that we should tighten up on the county and negotiate with them. If if they're supposed to be paying it to us immediately, or if there's an agreement, and if there is, why are they not paying us interest? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schwartz. You wish to comment or ask the question? Anybody on the Ms. Fritz or Ms. McConaughey? Ms. Fritz.
I don't know if there's an agreement in place. I'd have to
Yeah.
look into that. I don't know.
Thank you. Ms. Dodson, any other comment?
No.
Okay, thank you. Without any further ado, I entertain a motion. Motion to receive. So we do need to. Vice President Scott, I have to look at.
I move that we receive and file the second quarter budget report for fiscal year 2023-24.
It's been moved that we receive and file the second quarter budget report for fiscal year 2023-24. Do I have a second?
I'll second that. I was looking for the language for the motion.
Director Dean, seconded?
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we receive and file the second quarter budget report for fiscal year 2023-24. Could I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Vice President Scott?
Aye.
Director Dean?
Aye.
Director Thomas?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
President Gray?
Aye. I think we can. Yes, this is about our hour and a half, so I'll adjourn this meeting until, let's say, 2:35. And there's slightly less than 10 minutes. Well. I could have sworn I had done the public comment on utilities, except there's so many items. There was general manager. Yeah, I guess. Okay, thank you. The meeting of the Cambria Community Services Board of Directors is reconvening. We're at agenda item 7B in regular business. Discussion and consideration of annual updates to the board and standing committee bylaws. Staff and council have done the review of the bylaws and presented us with their updated version. I'll start with staff, with Mr. McElhenney, and maybe Mr. Carmel can add whatever he wants.
Thank you,
Discussion, thank you.
Thank you, President Gray. You've already introduced the item pretty well. On the discussion piece of it, on January 11th, 2024, the Board of Directors directed staff and District Council to review the Board of Directors and Standing Committee bylaws, provide recommendations to the Board of Directors, and for amendments deemed necessary or appropriate. And we have those recommendations attached.
Okay. Mr. Carmel, would you have anything to add?
I don't, President Gray. Most of the changes are clerical. There are a couple of substantive changes, but they're not meaningful. But I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, so are there any questions from the directors for either Mr. Carmel or Mr. McElhenney? Director Thomas.
And thank you, President Gray. I just wanted to comment that, often we wonder, should we capitalize, committee member, board member? Well, we now have the definitive work on what should be capitalized and what shouldn't, based on this set of bylaws.
Thank you. Any more questions? There were some discussion when we had this before us about some changes. We were talking about small changes, and I believe, I don't know, Vice President Scott, you had some suggestions, or somebody had some suggestions for change. I think these are all covered.
Yeah, I think the only one that I had was about attendance.
Yes.
And being tardy for meetings and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Is that?
It's not in here.
It's not here. No. I think that's something that was considered substantive, or something that would take a little more work than just the regular the review basically process. And I'll point out to everybody, this board can make corrections or additions or updates to the bylaws at any time. The annual review is more just to make sure we're in accordance with the law and that we correct any clerical errors or typo errors and get the capitalization right and things like that. But yes, if the question about how to deal with attendance and people who are absent from either committee meetings or board meetings can be taken up at any time during the year.
Thank you.
I'll turn this over to public comment. Oh, wait, Director Dean.
No, I just wanted to thank our general manager and our district council for the great job they did on this. Very much appreciated, and I think everything we asked for, other than your attendance item, was covered, and all of these corrections that they made in capitalization and grammar and everything make perfect sense. And thank you.
And I think, thank you. Appreciate the work too.
I had a lot of help from Mrs. Dodson.
Dodson.
However, she did notice a section that she would like to speak on rather quickly.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I know we've brought this up in the past to update it at some point, and it looks like it's back in there again. And I know I sent it back over in red line version, so maybe Tim felt it needed to be back in there. But under the CCSD Standing Committee bylaws, section 2.3A, the chairperson shall, it's on page 150. It says the chairperson shall be chosen annually from members of the board by board of directors by a majority vote of the board. And then also under section 3 on page 151, 3.1, it also says again, the chairperson shall be chosen annually from members of the board by a majority vote of the board. So it's referenced twice, and I'm not sure if it needs to be. I know in a staff report at one point last year, you guys mentioned that should be addressed.
Yeah. Mr. Carmel, is there a need to have it in the two places?
I didn't see the reference. I see 2.3A. Where was it referenced again? On
The other reference is on page 151 under section 3.1.
No, it's not. It's not necessary to reference it twice.
I would suggest, if it's not necessary, the 3.1 is actually more relevant because it's about officers of the committee. So I would say the 2.3, hey, I don't know, yeah, we just delete that and then just have 2.3. They have to do some, I'll have to do some re-lettering.
Right.
Yeah, but to make that make volunteer, well, committee members, A, and then the next paragraph, at the end of the term of office, B, prior to the beginning of a term, C, any applications received per 2.3D, E, D, the committee members shall be appointed, E, and committee chairperson shall be responsible, F. Does that change work? In your interview, Mr. Carmel, I was saying.
Yes, it does, President Gray.
Ms. Dodson? Okay.
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
good, thank you. Any other, I open this up to public comment. If anybody from the hall wishes to comment, this is the time to do it. I see none. Ms. Dodson, anyone want to comment, either online or in writing?
No.
Okay, thanks. If there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion, and somebody can do it, with those changes that we were discussing.
I move that we adopt the annual updates to the board and standing committee bylaws as written, with the exception of deleting 2.3A in the board bylaws.
Yeah, and relettering the
Standing.
In the
As appropriate.
standing committee bylaws.
Standing committee bylaws, yeah, standing committee bylaws, and relettering the provisions of 2.3, yeah.
I'll second the motion.
So moved and seconded that we approve the updated bylaws for both the board and the standing committees with the deletion of 2.3A and the relettering of the remaining sections of that subsection or whatever. Can I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Director Thomas.
Aye.
Director Dean.
Aye.
Director Farmer.
Aye.
Vice President Scott.
Aye.
President Gray.
Aye. Moving on to item 7C. This is the PROS Committee goals for 2024 and beyond. I think it's most appropriate. I'll start out with, since Mr. McElhenney is presenting this, he might want to also have the committee chair, Director Thomas, comment too, but I'll turn it over to Mr. McElhenney first.
Thank you, President Gray. Agenda item 7C, discuss and consider PROS Committee goals for 2024 and beyond. The proposed PROS Committee goals and objectives may have a fiscal impact associated with implementing each goal. Those impacts will be evaluated when any action items related to the goals proposed within the plan are brought before the board. And with that, I'll turn it over to Director Thomas for further discussion.
Yeah, thank you, President Gray and General Manager McElhaney. As we got the PROS committee kicked off, one of the first issues that several of the members brought up is let's define what we want to accomplish in the coming year. And so on December 5th, we had the brainstorming session. The members of the committee, I asked what is it that we want to have done this year, and if it's something that will take longer than a year, that's fine too. But what is it that the members of this committee are committed to accomplishing for the community? And we had dozens of ideas written on the flip chart, and then gave each of the members a handful of the little stickers, and go put those stickers on those that you think are the most, the highest priority, how you see fit. And then we, with that, we resulted in this list that we reviewed at our most recent meeting. And as spreadsheets go, I had my usual engineering-looking spreadsheet, and Vice Chair Shannon Sutherland took that and turned it into the fine-looking spreadsheet that we have here, which is very legible. Anyway, these are the things that that we want to get done. At each of the pros committee meetings, these will be our primary focus. What's the progress? What can we do to help move things forward? And where are we at? On the left, the first column is the goal, kind of briefly worded, a bit of a description. That's the what it's about, and the directly responsible individual. There may be several people involved, but the first name listed is like the lead for that for that scope, and the column of updates is blank. How we plan to use this as at each meeting, we'll capture updates as appropriate. So this and this is already posted on the pros committee page on the website, and it'll change each month as we update the progress.
Are there any questions before we get to comment and discussion? Are there any questions from directors for either Director Thomas or for Mr. McElhaney on this topic? Vice President Scott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So when you all put this together, I was wondering if you looked at what you have control over and what the role of a standing committee is, because I think, and we can get into this discussion a little bit more later, but there are things that are kind of out of your control as a committee. So I think we need to do some discussion about that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And in fact, I had a chat with legal counsel on this, and I believe the board president at the time of the remit of the pros committee, right? Is this to provide, is to deal with only park, recreation, and open space opportunities on CCSD-owned properties? If so, that's going to be pretty narrow. And or is it more broad? If you look at the outline, the jurisdictional boundaries that we see on the LAFCO map of where CCSD operates, is it really to look for ways to provide parks, recreation, and open space opportunities within that space? And having really thoroughly read the PROS Commission 1994 master plan, the PROS Parks, Recreation, Open Space Master Plan, a great piece of work. It's eminently clear that folks at that time viewed it as the larger scope of bring parks, recreation, and open space opportunities to Cambria any way we can. If it's on CCSD property, great. Then we have a friend right here that that owns that property. If it's working through influence with the county, let's influence the county. Let's do the work we can. If it's other entities, work collaboratively with all of the various entities that have some influence on the properties within within our boundaries. So right, you see many of these. Rodeo's Grounds Road, that ain't our property. And I don't know anyone who wouldn't like to influence the county to get that muddy road paved. And the list goes on. Many of these are beyond, but there are areas where the community has passion, and it'll be an interesting discussion. You might say, well, it's some of these are more in the NCAC space. But the energy of the pros committee members, the reason their hearts and energy are in this are to make the broader impact. So that's the conversation we've had. It's and that's a question that's right to the heart of it. So thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions from directors? Yes, public comment first. Yes, I'll open this up to public comment. There is a couple people in the hall here. Anybody want to comment who's here? Ms. Dodson, do we have any comment online?
No,
Any comment in writing?
no.
So I'll bring this back to the board for discussion. Anybody want to start?
Good to have a chat on this issue.
Director Dean.
Okay, it's no longer a pros commission, it's a pros standing committee, and a standing committee that's advisory to the board and is supposed to be working on things that are under the purview of the CCSD. So I just would like to make that statement. I realize you're trying to influence things that would be under the county thing, but anything that the pros committee wants to do does have to come before the board for approval. I have an issue with the coastal trail. President Gray and I, along with the chair of the Fire Safe Focus Group, has been working very hard on an evacuation route going over the Harmony Ranch Road. And one of their fears is the Coastal Commission wanting to have a coastal trail along the back of their property, and that road becoming a road to get to the coastal trail. And I think that it hampers our efforts to get that fire evacuation route if this is in here. Because we have already told them that that is not our intention, is of having a coastal trail behind that property. So I would like to see that one removed. Just because it does complicate our efforts to get an evacuation route. And I'm sure President Gray has something to say about that. On the skate park thing, the general manager and Ms. Dodson and Mr. Aguirre have been working very hard on this grant, and they're totally in control on it. But I would also like to remind everybody that when we revised and updated the ad hoc committee assignments of the board, it was acknowledged that Director Farmer and I were a board ad hoc committee working with staff on this grant and this skate park project, and it's under our purview to work on this until the permit is issued and it's ready for construction, and then it is to be referred to pros. That is the update we made on the ad hoc committee assignments of the board. So that is not at pros yet. As far as, and I did mention this to Director Thomas, on the developing a management plan for the inventory of CCSD open space properties, I believe we are in the process of getting a grant to manage those vacant lots, to do the weed abatement and all of that for at least the next 2 years. And so in my opinion, and I know Director Thomas disagrees with me, this is an operational issue that should be in the hands of Mr. Aguirre. Some of these other things, the Burton Drive walkway, we all would like to see a safe walkway down there, but I think this is something that should be brought before NCAC, and I imagine the pros ad hoc committee can do that. But I do believe that Dirk Winter owns property on both sides of Burton, and I think that it should be part of the county's requirements of them developing Brambles into a hotel and continuing to have 15 years of Christmas markets. I think it should be, the county should be requiring them to put that walking path in there. And perhaps pros can influence that somewhat too, and as well as on the NCAC. I'll quit here and let someone else talk.
Thank you, Director Dean. Any other, Vice President Scott?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I also think that the title, CCSD Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Goals for 2024, these are much more, these will go from now until 2026, 27. So you may want to look at the title.
Dr. Farmer, do you have any comment at this time? Okay. Yeah, I will second what Director Dean was saying about the coastal trail, especially, and having been involved for several years, actually, in dealing with, in talking to and getting to know the people who manage the Rancho Merino in particular, which is the longest stretch of the proposed route. All the landowners share this view, but I think especially the Rancho Marino people, because they're at the edge where they do have a trespassing problem already. They are adamantly opposed to any effort on our part to extend the coastal trail there. And if we indicate through this, adopting this, these goals and objectives, that will be a signal to them that they can't trust us and they don't want to work with us. It's a very strong feeling that they have there, and and in their case, I think there's a justification for it, because people think because it's near the coast, they get coastal access somehow, and they just hop the fence or they come up through the up from the the water there and wander around, and there's a problem. And so I don't want to. I don't want to be the instrument of complicating, perhaps disastrously complicating our effort to get an evacuation route there. And in reality, the coastal trail will not happen on private land. Really it won't, because the intent of the state is to put as many stretches of coastal trail on public land as they can. They don't have a budget, many millions of dollars budget for doing easement condemnations and stuff like that. So it's not really a prospect that we should entertain or encourage people to entertain. It's just not going to happen as long as those lands are in private ownership. I mean, that's the fact. So I strongly second Karen's, Director Dean's view on that. In a general sense too, I wanted to, I think she also made this point that PRO's committee, as a standing committee, is advisory, and it's advisory to the board, but it's also not executing. It's not to execute and conduct projects and do things. It's advice, and then execution is done by staff at the board's direction. And much of the language here, and it's irrelevant to the skate park grant, for instance, the board will work to ensure that CCSD works to meet all requirements. Well, they're kind of doing oversight, or they're supervising. That kind of language is what the board would have. Work with the, create a walking path from Burton Drive to Eaton Road. The inventory of open spaces owned by CCSD, and then begin to develop a management plan. Well, management plan development would be a staff function. I'm sympathetic to the idea, actually, of having the PROS committee help develop an inventory of the lots. We do need an inventory of our almost 200 various lots we have, vacant lots, because some of them are, probably most of them, but not all of them, are under conservancies and conservancy easements, and so they cannot be developed. But there's a fair number which are vacant and which are not under restrictions, which might be saleable. We might be able to actually, basically either sell them or even give them away. Even if we just give them away, we are reducing our load on lot clearance and maintenance. So we do need an inventory, I think, classifying our lots, showing where they are, and with that job done, maybe staff could have something to work with on a management plan long term. As Director Dean says, there is a grant which we've applied for, which is a very generous grant if we get it, which would through CAL FIRE, which would fund the basically forest wildfire protection management in all of our properties. And that would be a very useful first step to getting a long-term management plan in place. But in some ways, we don't need a long-term management plan yet until that work is done. And that work should be doable in, I think, 2025, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. McElhaney. So, and the other thing, my other point, which I think we can do with this list is prioritize it by feasibility, when something can be done, and if we have budget for it, and if it's already part of our strategic plan, make that the top priority. And of course, the item East Ranch Community Park Plan does fit that criteria. And maybe inventory of the lots, that sort of thing. For these aspirational ambitions, which have to do with us working with county or Caltrans, they are long-term things that could be studied. You could come back and do reports on them, but I don't think we should take it as the goals, because they are. I think Director Vice President Scott was saying maybe 2027. I'd say it's maybe 2030. I mean, we're dealing with these agencies, and we have no money for it, and they don't have money for it. It's something we just have to put on the not the back burner exactly, if we're interested in them, but we have to treat them as something that's not going to be done this year, and progress won't be made this year probably. So I think prioritizing this with the feasible and feasible work that's in harmony with our objectives that we have already should come first. I don't think anything's wrong with the idea of having a better working relationship with the County Parks and Recreation Commission. I think I might have suggested that, in fact, just having interactions with them. I think that's something as a general rule. It's not really a goal, but it's something that's good to do. But I would say with the rest of the items, they have to be classified in a different way, and as things that they're long-term future items or something like that are not. We don't want to let people think that that the pros committee is already kind of working on this stuff, because it's going to be a long time before anything can be done. And then getting back to the coastal trail, I think that should be simply excluded from the list, period.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of discussion about the title, and if you'll note in the agenda topic, discussing consider pros committee goals for 2024 and beyond. The committee and myself are well aware that many of these are long-term, and the question is, what do we want to bring to the community through our efforts in improving the parks, recreation, open space, many of which are places for people to walk. That's a common theme throughout here in a lot of ways, in addition to the community park plan. So we're well aware that these are long-term, and I think the dropping the and beyond is simply that's the header that ended up as this got prettied up. So I think that there's not much energy in limiting ourselves to only things that can be truly finished in the current calendar year, because we're all aware of the budget limitations. If that were the case, there'd be really no energy to work on anything. And the inventory of open space, the energy there, right? Yeah, and I don't think Mr. Geary's on the Zoom. Is he? Ms. Dodson?
No, he's not.
Right, because in the discussion, it was sort of kind of a reaching out. I could use some help, and so that was the intent of forming that ad hoc committee. But so how do we proceed with forming this out? And also on the coastal trail, there's some conversation about there's no way, some recognition that there's no way on earth this trail is going to go through the segment of Rancho Marino along that area. There's awareness that that's off the table, and can a coastal trail be on the other side of the highway? It's like, well, of course it can. It's like a way to get from connect to the Cayucos Trail and for people to continue on. So I think there's that awareness, but yeah.
I'd say with the coastal trail, the state has, their standards are to keep it as close to the ocean as possible. We're supposed to be able to, feel the surf and feel the spray. I mean, they talk like that, but it's got to be within view of the ocean, or it's not really the coastal trail. So I think on that one, If we're looking for a trail that goes inland along Highway 1, that's a different topic, and you could take it up later. But I think we have to drop the coastal trail designation entirely. So, yeah, if there's no more discussion, I know, Director Farmer, yeah.
Thank you. And thanks for all of your kind of your summary there, President Gray. Thanks very much. Yeah, I just want to, with regard to the Burton Drive walkway, and I can't recall exactly the year or years that it took place, and I don't know how many of you were here when it happened. I think President Gray may have been, perhaps Director Dean as well. But there was a time, and I think it was County Public Works, because I'm looking right here, where they did put that metal barrier along Burton Drive and the trail next to it, if I'm not mistaken, correct? Guardrails, I guess you would call it, right? All the way down, all the way from the nursery down to Village Lane. So it says here, create a walking path, but then at the end it says, work with SLO County Public Works to progress their expanded scope project. By the way, just noticing another way of the English language. Oh, is that progress or is it progress? Anyway, so to progress their expanded scope project. So is that referencing what was done before? I'm just curious.
Right. Kermit Johansson is met with county. I participated with him on one of these meetings, and in Kermit, through his initiative and his work on PROS, had looked at a couple of options, and one is there is a historic stagecoach trail that runs from where the sign is to the Cambria Nursery, basically passing through Tin City. Used to connect to a walkway, a small bridge over Santa Rosa Creek, somewhere around the green space property.
Right, near Center Street.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hence the name Bridge Street.
Exactly. And so, he had some conversations and discussions, but a landowner through which that would pass is not interested in that proceeding, and so the county was, had a couple of options that they were considering. So, and as you know, most times a year, if you walk that path, you basically have to get on the highway side, unless you're bringing a machete or a weed eater with you for the invasion of mustard and thistles. Yeah. It's just most of the year impassable, and a very short. In other words, someone could slide off down the hill, and it's not really a safe passage. So they are working on. The county is working on plans to improve that. Mm-hmm. And that's what's meant by progress their expanded scope. I can't remember exactly what their three alternatives included, but they had one that they had, what I've just described as their what they're currently working on.
Yeah, well, thanks for that update. And I know Kermit is really passionate on trails. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, we're lucky to have him.
Yeah. Maybe one approach to these projects, which are county and of course with that underpass between the two parts of the ranch, that's Caltrans. One approach might be that we could, obviously, CCSD could have make its position known or essentially ask for it. I think it'd be great if we could at least make make our views known to the county about the rodeo grounds road, and say, let's pass a resolution or something like that. But I think maybe the same spirit that's in that first section about interacting with members of the County Parks and Recreation Commission, I think NCAC is the conduit for these needs to the county. That's how Cambria is supposed to speak to the county on these things. If members of the pros committee or even just designees want to be kind of assigned to going and working with the NCAC and these things, that would be a good thing too. But I think the only way to really get results ultimately from the county is to go to the agencies, the county itself, or the agencies or the bodies that actually speak directly to the county. And we are a little bit remote from that. I don't want to continue the discussion too much longer. But Director, Vice President Scott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I just think that this document the ideas are amazing. The future, looking at the future for Cambria through the individuals on the pros committee. I mean, look at these ideas. They're wonderful. Every single one of them are wonderful. I just think that it's outside of a standing advisory committee role to do some of these things. So I kind of hear that that's the same opinion that several of the board members have. So is it possible to go back and kind of take a look at what it is that an advisor committee could do and put those in the form of goals for 2024 and then bring it back?
That's sure what we thought we did. And we are, it is an advisory committee.
Yeah.
The pros committee understands very clearly, and there are some conversations, you've probably heard them in the committee of, let's get something done. And so pretty much at every meeting, we kind of review the bylaws, and it is very clear if you read the bylaws, any deliverable of the committee is a plan. And it says that several times. And any plan would be brought to the board and would be executed by staff, not by an advisory committee, obviously. That's well known, but the intent is to put meaningful goals to work towards, and there's no illusions of grandeur of the committee thinking that they will get out there with the shovels and build these things or sign agreements to cause them to happen. It's what does this community need? Kind of going back to furthering the pros master plan that had been established 30 years ago. What does this advisory committee want to put its time and energy into to bring more opportunities to this community? And but the words you said were exactly the framework of generating these goals. So not sure how we move forward as a board on this discussion.
Perhaps we can make recommendations that Director Thomas can take back to pros for doing some updating on these goals. And I, for one, would like to see the coastal trails removed from this because it does hamper our efforts to try to get that evacuation route that several of us have worked over 3 years towards, and that is very much needed for the community. Because we know that that area that evacuation route would serve at this point with Dr. Narosa's study would be over 4 hours of if only evacuation route we have is Burton and Ardith. And that's if there's no trees, power lines, or broken down cars in the way. So I'd like that to taken out because it does affect our ability to continue towards this evacuation route. I would like to see them develop a maintenance plan taken out of the inventory of CCD open space properties based on the fact we've got that grant possibly coming for the maintenance. And I do think the maintenance is Mr. Aguirre's purview, but he does need help on the inventorying and the you know, what the designation of the lots are. So I know he appreciates the help in that. The Cambria Skate Park has not gone to pros yet. It is still under an ad hoc committee of the board. So, and I don't think the general manager needs anybody else looking over his shoulder on this grant because he's doing an excellent job of that. So I don't think that needs to be in there. And I would like to see the East Ranch Community Park Plan be the #1 priority.
Yeah. Do you wish to make a motion to that effect?
Okay, I'll move to what I just said. Can I do that?
Well, I mean, is it,
Would you like me to restate the motion?
I can.
well,
Give it a
let's,
go.
yeah, you can restate the motion.
Well,
We-
does
we-
anybody else have anything
Yeah.
else to add to that motion before I make it an exact motion?
I don't. I think it covers my point, covers what I was interested in. I mean, Vice President Scott?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I just don't see how an advisory committee can create a walking path from Burton Drive and Eaton Road, et cetera, et cetera. They can't do that. So it kind of, I mean, I think they need to be rewritten in a way that the advisory committee actually has the authority to engage in.
Yeah. It's a matter of the wording of a lot of this is problematic. I think that's a good point.
But maybe they can bring their recommendation to the board and the board can direct PROS members to go to NCAC to discuss some of these things to get it forward through that way.
You can do that, yeah.
Okay.
Now, I don't know, the motion,
I think there's probably not going to be a motion. It sounds like this needs to be revised and brought back to the board.
Yeah, I agree.
The motion would have to be too
it
messy.
would sound like it would be too complicated. I do think we need, call me paranoid, but maybe we should have a motion initially, just a motion on a narrow topic to remove the coastal trail reference.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not
Yeah,
making.
that's obviously not going to be in the next version that comes to the board.
So maybe we just basically this is for what we tell what the public sees and what message we're sending. Do I have a motion on that narrow issue?
So you want to make a motion to remove the coastal trail out of the PROS goals document?
Yes.
Okay, I'll move to that.
You have a second?
Second.
It's moved and seconded that the reference to the coastal trail extension between Cambria and Cayucas be eliminated from the Parks and Recreation Open Space Goals for 2024 document. Could I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Director Dean?
Aye.
Vice President Scott?
Aye.
Director Thomas?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
President Gray?
Aye. Now, the rest of this, I think, in the spirit of our rather extensive and somewhat deep and complicated discussion, goes back, we basically give this back to the PROS committee to give it another look. I think we're,
That's the plan.
well, okay, good.
And without squelching their enthusiasm,
Yes.
which is going to be really hard for you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. We have, I think, well, future agenda items, yeah, future agenda items, and then this is item, I'm going to go back to my list here, 8. Item 8, future agenda items. This is when the members of the board can ask for an item to be placed on future agendas. It also is a time when we go over what's already on the future agendas, and I think maybe Ms. Dawes can do that first so we make sure everything's covered.
Sure. On Monday, March 4th, the Board of Directors will be holding the Strategic Plan Workshop. And on March 14th, they will consider approving the updated district personnel policies, procedures, and rules, discuss and consider adopting the district strategic plan update, discuss and consider an annual review of the affordable housing unit allocation, and an introduction of a civil administrative citation ordinance for violation of CCSD ordinances and regulations. On March 21st, 2024, the Board of Directors will consider approval of the Management and Confidential Employee Group Payment and Compensation Plan, consider postponing the General Manager's performance evaluation to a date certain, discuss and consider adopting a resolution to approve the records retention schedules, discussion and consideration of adoption of the fund balance cash reserve policy revisions recommended by the Staff and Finance Committee, a discussion regarding district vehicle use, discussion and consideration to approve the capital improvement project list format, and discussion and consideration of adoption of policy 1045, legal counsel and auditor policy.
Thank you. Any items that directors wish to add? Dr. Farmer.
I don't wish to add anything, but I'd like to request of Ms. Dodson that perhaps she could send that list that she just read to us board members.
Sure.
Thank you.
I actually have an item which I briefly mentioned during our last discussion. I don't think, irrespective of what PROS committee plans to do, I think it would be very helpful if we if we sent a resolution to the county saying that because we rely on the Red Oak Grounds Road for access to our primary recreational area, we consider it, a matter of urgency that that road be improved to the point where it's at least drivable in wet weather, ideally paved. So I mean, a resolution basically on improving Rodeo Grounds Road. I'd like to add that to a future agenda. No, and is there any public comment on the future agenda items?
No.
Any comment? Nope. Okay, great. So we're at the point now where we are going to be adjourning to closed session. Mr. Carmel, you want to make the announcement?
Yes, President Gray. The board will now adjourn to closed session for a conference with its labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. The agency designated representative is General Manager Matthew McElhaney, and the unrepresented employee organization is Management and Confidential Exempt Employees Group. Thank you.
Thank you. And we are hereby adjourned to closed session.
Do you want to ask for public comment?
Oh, wait, sorry. Okay. You're right, not adjourned yet. Is there anyone here want to have any public comment? Is there any public comment from online or in writing?
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. You caught me just as I was about to gavel. Too early. We're adjourned now.